Hi team. I had a little interesting fight that I thought might be helpful as an educational piece or whatever. It's kind of a useful little clip to talk about for you wannabe soloers out there. So a little backstory before I start the actual video. Short. Well, there's not much backstory. I was in a ham drake. In case the fit isn't clear to you, it's just like all ballistic controls on the bottom, heavy missile or heavy assaults on top, a scram and web, and then two invulns. So pretty straightforward ship. I went to HED. It showed 3 active on the map. I chose to go to the SV5 gate where I landed in a drag bubble. There was a Dreameel and a Cinnaball on scan, which is basically fine. So I intentionally kind of warped to the drag bubble instead of a planet and then down to the gate. If I warp directly to the gate, I kind of ensure that they can't engage me in the way they want to. I'd rather just warp into the bubble and give them what they want since I'm not really worried about those two ships alone. So I'll start the video now. Um, 1, 2, 3 now. And so we start out where I've landed in the bubble here, and first thing I'm going to do is see what the Dreameel does. He obviously tackles me right away. The Cinnaball's not on grid. But the cool thing here is I can start burning towards the gate and basically force the Dreameel. I know the Cinnaball's not going to come close with the web, so it's the Dreameel that's going to do that. And I kind of give the Dreameel, I say, look, I'm going to the gate and I'm going to jump out unless you come in close and tackle me. And if he comes in close, with a scram, a web, a small newt, and small drones, I should be able to kill him without a ton of trouble. Um, and so I kind of just say, look, you have to do that, or I'm going to make the gate and jump out. This guy doesn't really want to do that. He stays outside of tackling range, which is fine, but it just means I'm safe. I can just go to the gate and leave. Cinnaball lands and starts shooting me, but DPS isn't huge because he's got to stay at 25k or whatever. And this interdictor shows up on grid as well. I'd be happy to kill him if he comes in close. Basically, I've got this with the being on grid with the gate. I'm forcing everything to a 10k range with me. If they want me to not jump out, they have to close that range. But if they do close that range, I can kill them. There's not enough DPS on the field right now for them to give me a tough decision about whether or not to engage, as you'll see in a second. So I close to 0 on the gate, and then for whatever reason, at that point, the Dreameel decides he can dive in and tackle me. I don't really know what his plan is there, but he decides now it's time to come in close. And this was the most disappointing part of the fight for me. I really thought he would go down much faster, and I'm really surprised he didn't. I don't know what that means. I mean, Dreameels are just OP, I guess is what it means. The other thing interesting is I overheated my scram and web to begin with to make sure he didn't slide out of my tackle, and then he did anyway. I dropped the heat and then accidentally turned my scram off, and that let him get outside. And I was burning towards him, and I should have been more aggressive about that. Anyway, once he's gone, there's no point in chasing him anymore, and now he knows too he can't come in that close, so he probably won't be back there. As you can see, my tank is totally fine. So now that he's gone, and that they kind of know overall that they can't get that close without having to deal with taking damage, I can pretty much count on them not offering me up an easy target. Like the flycatcher, for instance, is probably going to stay pretty far away for the most part. And now there's a hurricane on grid, which means I'm looking at more DPS, which means I've got to think a little harder before I take aggro again. So right now my plan is just de-aggro and leave, because there's not a whole lot else I can do, especially because I'm jammed by jam drones. That always makes your decision much easier. So they're all still just holding range. I did have the potential to actually warp somewhere, but other than warping back to low sec, there's not really a ton of benefit that offers, so I wasn't too focused on that idea. Now the flycatcher does come in close, but now, see, the problem is that if I choose to aggro the flycatcher, which I can't because of the jam drones, but if I decided to, I've got to decide if I'm going to have enough time to de-aggro again before I die, which I probably would have actually, but with the jam on me, I just decided not to worry about it. Now I know that their whole gang has aggro, or at least I had thought their entire gang did. It turns out one guy jumps through and it's the hurricane. But I have a jump. I have 1 minute basically of freedom, and I choose to move up a gate rather than fight on this gate. That gives me a little more time to see if another ship is chasing. Like, for instance, if something had come from the station, you saw local was at 12 or 14 or whatever, even though there was only 4 ships on my gate. If something else had showed up on the gate for the chase to try to get on the kill, I would know right now, because it would have jumped in before the rest of their aggro cleared, and that didn't happen. So I know that I have around a minute, maybe a little more than that, alone with the hurricane. Because their DPS was so low, when I got here, I actually thought I wanted to fight the Hurricane. So I align rather than warp. I have time here to warp off grid. I know that because I know I landed on the gate with no Hurricane at it. But I decided to just align and hope the Hurricane goes for a desperate tackle. And I pull some micro warp here to put some range between me and the gate. In retrospect, I don't think that's necessary, but it's fine. Um, and so, as expected, he shows up and comes for me. And I figure maybe the 1 minute head start will be what I need to kill him, and then I'm basically in the same situation I was in on the other gate. I can choose between de-aggroing and killing little ships, and they don't have any webs to keep me from doing that. As it turns out, something unexpected happened, which is that this Hurricane is armor tanked. And here I think you really see the strength of going with a traditional fit over a shield fit when you're by yourself. A shield fit here would have gone down fast. He would have done a lot more damage to me, for sure. But it would have... the situation would have resolved much quicker. His tank would have melted. I do a lot of damage, and his tank would have gone down pretty quick. And not only that, but if it didn't, I give myself the ability to web and scram him and then micro warp away and potentially warp off grid. Against an armor cane like this, I don't have that option. He has a scram and web, so I am a sitting duck, which means I cannot leave unless I can kill him. And with the big armor tank, that's going to take some time. Of course, the other huge obstacle for me is these DCM drones, which in my opinion are not good for Eve. I don't know that they're particularly overpowered, but they're not very fun. And they jammed me once there. That was pretty critical. I think there would have been some hope. You know, if he had light drones, there would have been some hope that I can bring him down before this fight ends. As it turns out, because I just get jammed again right there, there's no hope for that. So from here on out, I'm basically perma-jammed. He's also got newts, so pretty soon my cap runs out, turns off my invulns and my DCU. And from here, I'm just dead. But I thought this was a kind of a good example of the sort of fights I have a lot when I'm solo. Like, this is the fight that can turn into a video quality fight if I can pick, if this Hurricane is fit badly or fit perfectly to you know, for me to pick him off quick. You know, maybe I go through that brawl in the other gate, I get to this gate with him isolated, I kill him, I reapproach, I isolate another ship on the other gate. You can see how that can kind of develop. And hopefully that first part of the fight where I'm showing you the decision that they have to make between putting themselves in a situation that I like and letting me go. That's the kind of situation you want. That's the kind of situation where people make mistakes. Anyway, that does it, I guess. This is the kind that doesn't go in the video, obviously, because I just got rocked and didn't kill anything. But I think that from my perspective, it's almost as valuable. It's a fight where I have to think a lot. It's a fight where there's opportunity for something really cool to happen, and I only had to fly 4 jumps. I'm by myself, and I'm in a ship that's not all that expensive. So hopefully you guys can get some action like that if you're looking to solo, and hopefully this was helpful. Peace.